and welcome to me DIYing stuff I randomly found on the internet and wanted to see if I can make it for cheaper. Patent pending. I'm going to be starting out this first one a little bit different than usual because I'm going to be making 2 out of the 3 of these trinket trays that I want to make, but 2 of them are being made out of the same base material. So first I'm going to be showing you how to clean off one of these trinket trays from the Dollar Tree or Dollarama. I'm not honestly sure which one at this point, but here we go. Let's roll up our sleeves and put on the protective materials, aka latex gloves. So these are the trinket trays. You may have seen them at the dollar store if you're an avid goer. I think they're like $1.25 or maybe $2 at most. They've got these sayings and designs that I'm not particularly a fan of, so I wanted to change it up. I wanted to see how easy it would be to remove these, and it was quite easy. It took a little bit of elbow grease, but I got it done. I actually struggled for a good couple of seconds on getting these stickers off, but I found out in the long run that just following through with the steps that I'm taking anyways, they end up coming off pretty easily. First, I'm taking some acetone. You can just use any kind of nail polish remover. I honestly don't really know the difference. I should, but I don't. And apparently spilling everything everywhere, as usual. You'll see within the first couple seconds when you're doing this, if you do this, that it starts to come off, but it does leave behind this, like, basically the shape of what it was, as if somebody had etched it in. With that being said though, from the designs I chose from, the etching did not get in the way of those whatsoever. However, if you do want this to be just a translucent dish, you may have an issue with that, as it does show through. So just like with any price tag or sticker, just put a cloth on it that's dampened with water, leave that on for a few minutes, and you should be able to scrape it right off, leaving behind some sticky residue that you can either take off with acetone or Goo Gone. Then be sure to take some water, preferably of the soapy variety, and just clean all of that off so you have no acetone or Goo Gone or whatever substance left on there, so it's clean as a whistle. Besides the etching, of course. Now that we've got the general cleaning out of the way, it's time to move on to the actual project. Here we go. This first project is inspired by this right here, which is the Sephora collection glitter o'clock. No, I'm not making that up. Trinket tray. Now this is basically just glitter that I assume would be in resin and then poured into a trinket tray. I, however, am using glue. Now, I will say that this will stick a whole lot better if you were to take a sandpaper and sand the tray down a little bit so the glue has something to stick to, because unfortunately it ended up actually coming up the more the glue dried. So long as you add that little sanding in between the glitter glue and the trinket tray, you can continue on following these steps, which is just mixing in any glitter. You can totally mix in different types of glitter, different sizes, different colors, whatever you want to do. Here's some behind the scenes footage of me contemplating for far too long whether or not I was going to put these flakies in there, which are essentially just really big and chunky pieces of glitter, or like what kind of gold leaf is, only different colors. And then just mix that all together and then pour it into your trinket tray. This actually took, I would say, 2 to 3 days to fully dry down, which of course is going to be more than a resin would take, but this is also a lot less expensive considering I got this glue from the dollar store for $1.25. So this is the first version of the faux resin trinket tray. As for the second, this one kind of took a turn. At first it was supposed to be this, which is, again, the Sephora collection Wake Up to Makeup trinket tray. But it definitely took a turn because I kind of forgot about what I was doing and then I got carried away. But the thought is still there, kind of. And if you find that you personally like the Sephora one better than this one, then it's definitely a lot easier, a lot less time consuming, but I want to do a little bit different. Because each line is going to have both black and white, I wanted to keep the brushes as similar as possible in shape and density. I took some washi tape because it's honestly incredibly easy to peel off, especially from something like this, and I just went back and forth with some acrylic paint. You can definitely paint with any type of paint on here, but acrylic I find is just the easiest to get, plus it's from the dollar store, so again, $1.25. Everything about these DIYs is super cheap. And then once I had it going back and forth between black and white, I took a Q-tip with some water on it. Yeah, let's call that water. I just cleaned up the edges a little bit, went back and forth, back and forth. I went between 2 different pieces of washi tape to do this because it did bleed a little bit underneath. I did whatever necessary retouching on each square, if it needed a secondary coat or not, or if the edges needed a little bit of help. I went in with a nail dotting tool and just whatever color coincided with it. To scrape off or push down what was alongside the edges that I didn't want to be there, I used a combination of a plastic palette knife and just my finger, and it worked perfectly. Allowed those to dry overnight, and then added the glue over top. Now this one the glue actually stuck to, and I think it's because it had something that wasn't just plastic to stick to, like it had some ridges in it, which is why I would recommend sanding the other one if that idea does interest you more. Then we have the final one, which I actually found online as an ashtray, but I want to use it more as a trinket tray, and it's this guy right here. I will link it in the down bar below because it is from a smaller creator rather than a big company. So I made this just by simply using the same clay that I usually use from the dollar store, and I just rolled out a pretty big kind of circle amorphous shape and then cut a circle out using a plastic yogurt container top as my outline, and then with the access that I had from the outline, I rolled that into a flatter tube-like shape and continued that up with similar pieces, remembering to score and add slip in between each layer. Over and over and over. Quite literally, because I only did 3 layers. Smoothing everything out with some slip in my finger once again. Now that I've got my base hole done, I'm adding in a little floaty, doing the exact same thing that I did with the sides, but I'm doing it with a smaller amount of clay, and then again, scoring and adding slip to this to make it so I'm able to put the 2 ends together to make a complete circle. Putting some more slip down on the underside and then placing it down on my base. Since this is the last step before I let it dry and then do the paint job, I wanted to smooth it out one last time, again with the palette knife, a little bit of slip, and my fingers. My goal for this was to make the bottom 2 layers look like one cohesive piece, and the top layer as its own, as an inflatable pool would look. Now, as I have been using a clay turning table to help spin this around as I smoothed it down, I did need to take it up with a piece of string or dental floss, can definitely vouch for the dental floss, and then leave it to dry overnight. But beyond that, I am painting a coat of white paint on it to make any and all colors that I put on top of that pop. AKA being the truest form of the color that it could possibly be, as opposed to if I were to put it over a gray, like the clay was naturally, it would be slightly more muddy. Alongside with that paint job, once it dried down, I went in and started out with the blending process of the inflatable pool. I did this simply by going in with 1 to 2 layers of the yellow and 1 to 2 layers of the orange, and then used the brushes coinciding with each color to mix in the other color. So for example, the original brush that I had used for the orange, I started using to blend in the yellow to the orange, etc., both on the inside and on the outside. Went back in with that white to detail any of the edges I might have gone over with the orange. Added a medium blue into the mix for the water, and I have been told that this medium blue definitely resembles water that is in a pool, so... For the floaty, I'm taking inspiration from, again, the original Etsy seller that I found. However, you can definitely go crazy with this. You can make it more cartoon-like, or even make it resembling one that you may have had when you were a kid. The world is your oyster floaty. Hell, even make it an oyster floaty. I know I've seen those around somewhere. I recommend using a nail dotting tool or anything that's really used for detailing to, well, detail. And that is it for the paint job. Now to seal this all in and to keep it dollar store friendly, I came in with the same Elmer's glue that I used for the last 2 of these, and I just used the rest of that, put a couple dollops in there, and moved it around a little bit with a brush. I did only use the clear glue on the water to give it a more shiny effect because of course water is going to be a little bit more luminous. But if you do want to seal everything in, I would recommend maybe going for a matte sealant rather than a gloss, but you could definitely get away with a satin as well. This is the finished product. I actually think this is my favorite one out of all of them, with the black and white one in a close second. And that is it for today's video, and I do hope you guys enjoy, and I will see you in my next one. Bye guys!